Hey everyone, my name is E. My pronouns are they, them, or he, him, or you can just call me by my name, E, like the letter. I got double incision top surgery utilizing the buttonhole method on January 13th, 2023. My surgeon was Dr. Daniel Jacobs at the Gender Confirmation Center, which is based in San Francisco, California, in the United States. And welcome to this video. I made this video to talk a little bit about my experience having that surgery, some of the considerations that came in for me pursuing this, especially as a non-binary trans person, and a few other things. So stick around. Thank you for being here. So back when I was in my own process of getting top surgery, I decided to document some of my experiences so that I could hopefully share it with you all. And for specifically people who are darker skinned, for people who aren't and have never been on testosterone, for people who are really interested in nipple preserving surgeries, especially buttonhole, because that's the one I actually got. For those of you who are looking to hear more experiences coming out of the Gender Confirmation Center, especially with Dr. Jacobs, because he's one of the newer surgeons at the center, and for folks who maybe are not FTM, right? So folks who are not transitioning in a binary way, but want to hear some of the considerations that may go into having top surgery. That might be a little bit different than someone who is transitioning in that way. So here we go. I do want to name up front that I'm speaking entirely from my own experience. So I am not a medical professional. I have never been a medical professional. And for those of you watching this, please do not perceive anything I say as, medical professional advice. As you're going through your own journey of top surgery, I highly recommend that you talk to a primary care physician, ideally one that's familiar with you. And as you get further down that road and start talking to surgeons, I really highly recommend talking to at least 2 surgeons to get different opinions. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I just want to say up front, this is me speaking from my experience, so please receive it as such. All right, so now that all of that's out the way, let's go over our agenda. So in this video, what will we be covering? We'll be covering why I personally got top surgery, why I chose the surgeon I did, and a couple of things I wish I had known as I was going through this process myself. I will also, put up what you all are probably here to see, which is a timeline of my results up to the most recent, which was my 1-year top surgery anniversary, which is one of the reasons I'm making this video now. So you can see some of that healing over time. And then I'll kind of close us out talking a little bit about scar care and some of the considerations that can go into that. So why did I personally get surgery? So for me, I decided to go ahead with surgery because my dysphoria was really increasing after quite a few years of me pursuing various non-surgical interventions to try to alleviate that dysphoria. So for example, I've been binding for about 5 years up to the point that I got top surgery. For me, binding got to a point where I really could not do it every day or even regularly because I was feeling so much pain in my body, especially my shoulders and my back, that was really starting to affect my health. Another way I was kind of binding without officially binding to try to alleviate some of that pain was through wearing like really intense compression bras, like sports bras that are made for serious athletes. Now, I was someone who's very involved in a lot of different activities, so it made sense for me to wear these in one way, but at the same time, they were causing me some of the same problems that binding with a binder was causing me. So after some years of this, I also realized I couldn't really wear those regularly as well. Now, as I mentioned, I was someone and still am someone who is a very active person. And so at the time that I had top surgery, I was working out regularly about 5 times a week. And I will say I was able to bring down through exercise and of course all the nutrition pieces that go into that as well. I was able to bring down my own chest size from around a C cup before I really dove headfirst into exercise in that way to at the time of my surgery, I was roughly a B cup. So as you have probably figured out, I did a lot of things to try to alleviate my dysphoria before I came to the conclusion that I had to have surgical intervention via top surgery. So why buttonhole? So for me, there were a few different reasons. Number one was that I was not committed to having a completely flat chest. Now I wanted it to be mostly flat because I'm a small framed person who is very naturally lean. So really for me, it was more about having a chest that looked natural with my frame. But I'm also a person, like I stated earlier, who's very active, who does work out. So if I had a little bit of extra there, whether it was tissue or muscle, it didn't matter to me as long as it fit my frame. So that's a big consideration. That's something that your surgeon, if you're pursuing buttonhole, is likely going to ask you. Do you want it absolutely flat? And if you say no, or if you have a little bit of wiggle room, then buttonhole might be right for you. Another reason was also nipple preservation. So for me, pre-surgery, I had nipples that had 100% feeling, right? They're a very critical part of my experience as a human being. And I wanted to have those nipples after I had my surgery. Now, I knew that nerves are a funny business, and my surgeon told me as much, that he only had some limited control over whether or not I might have nerve sensation in my nipples, even with a nipple preserving surgery after the surgery was completed. But I wanted to take that risk. And also for me personally, my nipples were not part of my dysphoria. I actually really liked my nipples. I called them my little Hershey kisses. And so personally, I wanted to keep the nipples that I had, but sort of shrink down the areolas a little bit, which is ultimately what happened. So between the sort of look of the nipples and the feel of the nipples, buttonhole made a lot of sense for me, and thank goodness on the other end, I actually have amazing sensation, almost completely back to what it was pre-surgery in my nipples. So they react to hot and cold, they react to tactile sensation and erotic sensation. I really have it all. So I'm so blessed in that regard, and I love the look of them. I feel like it really fits me. So that was really great. All right, now the moment that you all have probably been waiting for, the timeline. So now that you've seen some of my results, I'm going to talk about a couple of the things I wish I had known as I was entering the process of finding my surgeon and ultimately the place I would have my surgery. And I hope that you all can learn from my mistakes and from my successes. So why did I choose the surgeon and the surgical center that I ultimately went with? Well, first and foremost, I do want to start off by saying that I actually started going in a different direction. So first and foremost, I was going to go with a surgeon out here in Washington area, which is the area I'm generally in. And I, number one, was going to go with that surgeon because of proximity. I thought that healing would be a lot easier at home, logistically less complicated. And this was a surgeon that a lot of people were familiar with in the area, and I had heard really good reviews. So when I went into the office to have a consult with the surgeon, initially I had a good vibe. There were some questions that he asked and things that he said up front that seemed to indicate that he understood the nuances of my particular surgery. For example, he said up front that he thought I would need to be really mindful about my scar care because I have a darker complexion, and keloiding is very common for folks who are more melanated. So this was something that I appreciated, that a surgeon was thinking about this up front and was maybe going to keep it in mind as he, thought about performing an operation on me. So that day, the day that I went in there, without talking to any other surgeons, I decided to go ahead and put down my deposit and secure my date to have surgery with this guy. Now, I want to offer a word of caution here. When it came to this surgeon, there were a few things that were flags for me. Number one, I came in there really, really interested in pursuing a nipple preserving surgical technique. On his website, it had said that he offered that as an option for the right candidate. So me at this time having, a fairly small chest on a small frame, I figured I might be a good candidate. However, I was very disappointed to find that during this in-person consultation, he never even brought up that type of surgery at all, never mind as an option for me. And so after I'd already put down this deposit, I started thinking about this and found myself feeling very disquieted within my spirit. I felt like I really hadn't advocated enough for myself despite all my preparation to tell this guy exactly what I wanted. And so I hit him back up for a second consultation on the phone. And really the point of this consultation was just to tell him / ask him, could I really be a candidate for this other nipple preserving method, which for clarity was inverted T, the inverted T method. And so when I got on that consultation with him, he actually told me that he didn't even offer that surgery, which was confusing to me because on the website it said that he did, but he said that he didn't. And then on top of that, he really was more comfortable doing double incision with the nipple grafts, and there really wasn't much wiggle room on that. And once I came back to myself, kind of like settled down, because I was feeling pretty upset after this phone call, I was like, actually, that's just not what I want. And so I decided to go look in a different direction. Now, I wanted to start off with that cautionary tale from the first surgeon that I went with, because as I stated in the beginning of this video, I was not someone who was coming into this having no preparation for top surgery. I came in with a laundry list of questions. I came in with the experiences of my friends and loved ones who'd already had top surgery in my minds, those who had had great experiences with their surgeons and people who had had not great experiences. Like basically, I'm telling y'all, I came in there prepared, but that excitement of like, finally, I'm doing this thing. Finally, we're making it happen. That can overwhelm you. You're sitting in front of the person who will maybe be the person who's going to do the operation. That is a big thing. And so it's really, really, really important to always get a second opinion. Now, people may have told me this in the preparation. I don't remember it now, but I want to say it to you all. Please always get a second opinion. Even if you're going to the surgeon of your dreams, even if you feel like, I absolutely know this is the person I'm going to go with, just hear it out from at least one other person. And if anything, maybe talking to somebody else completely different may just reaffirm your commitment to that first surgeon. But make sure that you get that second opinion before you put down anything in writing, before you're signing any contracts and putting down any deposits that you can't get back. Don't be like me and waste that money. So, Dr. Jacobs and the Gender Confirmation Center, I don't have enough great things to say about these folks. When I had my conversation with Dr. Jacobs, which actually was on the phone because he was in California and I was in Washington, and that was just the way that we did that first consult, I was blown away. Here was a man who clearly had read my file, who came in prepared, who took extra time to stay on the phone with me beyond the amount that was actually allotted for the appointment, who answered all of my very detailed questions, because after that first experience, I was trying to make up for, what had not been a great time and make sure that I absolutely understood what I was potentially agreeing to with going with this man as my surgeon. I also transparently had a lot of questions because Dr. Jacobs was brand new to the Gender Confirmation Center at the time that I talked to him, and so there were really no photos of any of the people he'd worked on yet. I was ultimately able to find a couple of photos online, and they were promising, but I still, did put a lot of trust into him that his previous experience, which I had learned about through just Googling and researching as, a head surgeon at his previous practice, which was a Kaiser Permanente Center in California, that would come in handy, that his years of being a surgeon would be relevant now that he had switched into this very specific line of surgery, and that the fact he'd been vetted by such a renowned institution in the gender affirming surgery world as the Gender Confirmation Center would also kind of speak to his qualifications to do this surgery. But I was still very nervous, and I think especially coming into this, knowing that a lot of darker skinned folks, especially Black folks, don't always have the results that we would hope for. It was a very nerve-wracking experience to put my trust into someone where I couldn't even necessarily see that he was going to be the right guy. But I decided to do so, and I'm very, very, very happy that I did. And I will also say that since my time working with him, now that he's been at the center longer, more folks, including more melanated folks, have started to share their results after working with him as their surgeon, and I've heard and seen nothing but great things. So I would highly recommend him, highly recommend the Gender Confirmation Center. Working with their admin staff was really not very painful at all. I will say I did not work with their insurance staff because I personally did not use insurance to cover this surgery, but I've heard good things about them from folks who've used them, so would highly recommend everyone involved. So, scar care. So first and foremost, I want to introduce y'all to Biocorneum, and Biocorneum is a silicone-based gel that has SPF 30 put into it. So it basically is going to protect your scars from the sun, and it's also going to help heal your scars with silicone. So for me, I had both biocorneum, which I was applying about once a week for the first 9 months of my surgery, post-surgery, and that was because I was putting on silicone scar strips in 2 layers on both of my scars. So total, I was basically taking one long thing of silicone, the length of a scar, cutting it in half, and then laying them on top of each other very flat. And I use Cica tape. I don't have a box right now, but CICA tape. You can find it through Walmart, Walgreens. Those were the 2 main places where I got it from and had it just delivered to me because it was easier to get it in bulk that way. Both of these things are fairly expensive, so I do want to be upfront. They are, but I found that they really helped in my healing. Okay, so these are my 2 major recommendations that basically come by way of my surgical office. All right, everybody, I know that was a lot of information, but I really hope it was helpful. I really just wanted to add my voice to the canon of people, all kinds of trans people who have gone through this amazing, life-saving, life-changing surgery. It definitely was that for me, and I hope if you're watching this video and you haven't had your surgery yet, that it will be so for you. I'm very open to questions, which you can obviously leave in the comments. Yeah, and please have a great rest of your day, and I guess a great rest of your life. Take good care. Bye.